Yo guys, boom. All right, I'm actually here. So one thing that is important with detailing is you're gonna use some chemicals a lot and you're gonna use other chemicals not very much. So when you're buying chemicals, you wanna know which ones are you gonna be using most often so that you can buy the right ones. In my year of detailing, I've learned definitely a lot about, kind of what proportions I can expect and what chemicals are some of the most I've used, and also some that I've barely used that I thought I was going to use a lot of, and other things like that. To start, I just have these two here. What I'm going to call them is I have an interior cleaner, and then I also have a carpet cleaner, and these are definitely what I use the most. Carpet cleaner is the number one chemical I use because when you do really dirty cars, you basically need to use around 50 ounces of a spray bottle, basically, and that's a lot of cleaner. If you're doing that each car, that adds up pretty quick, and you'll find yourself going through carpet cleaner like crazy. Especially this stuff, dilute 1 to 5 or 1 to 8, so it's not even like you're using a lot of the chemical, but you just use a lot of it over time, and so it adds up very fast. So carpet cleaner is going to be one of the most used chemicals that you will have in your arsenal as a detailer. So that's number one. The second one is definitely some kind of interior cleaner. And this is because when you're doing interiors, you're basically going to spray down every surface with the cleaner in some fashion. You might not have to do much agitation, but you'll at least wipe it up with a microfiber towel to get some of that dust off, or a little bit of bacteria or dirt or whatever it may be. And so you're going to be using this on your seats, you're going to be using this on like the dash, you're going to be using this pretty much everywhere in the car, and because of that you are using a lot of it. Whereas with the carpet cleaner, you're using it a lot in a few areas. The inner cleaner, you're using a little bit in a lot of areas, so it's kind of the opposite problem, but you're also using a lot of it. And I certainly have gone through a few gallons of PNS interior cleaner over the time I've been detailing, and so I've used a lot of it. The last one, and I don't know if this is necessarily true or not, but I just kind of wanted to talk about like car soaps and car foams as like a general single chemical because it's a little easier to discuss then. But these are going to be something you use pretty much every detail, and it's also going to be something that you might not use a lot of. I mean, you use like maybe 20 milliliters of a soap and 50 milliliters of a car foam. And so that's not a whole lot of chemical. It's going to be one of the most frequent things you do is washing your car. You don't need to clean the interior all too often with chemicals. You're going to always probably wash your car with chemicals. So I don't see how you would clean your car, the exterior, with just pressure washing it. Car soaps and car foams are going to be something you use quite often, and they do last for a very long time compared to things like your carpet cleaner and interior cleaner. If you're doing a lot of interiors, or if you're just doing a lot of cars, they don't last. Sorry, I'm kind of getting a little bit lost on my chain of thought there. The amount of time it takes to use your car soaps and car foams up is going to be a lot longer than it takes for you to use up things like your carpet cleaner and inner QD, just because of how much you can dilute them usually. For example, I've had this CarPro Reset bottle for a while, and I had a smaller one before, and they lasted me like freaking forever. So I am washing my car quite often, maybe every couple of weeks. The use is a small amount, but it's a very consistent amount. It's the most often task I'm doing on my car is washing it. So these are the 3 most used chemicals that I have in my arsenal. I think this really applies to any detailer who does both interior and exterior work a lot. You're gonna find that these 3 will be really something you use quite often. All right, so for chemicals that I barely ever use, and I've got different reasons for each of these for why I don't use them very often, but I have a rinseless wash, and this one's a little kind of like false. Like I do use it a lot, but I'll talk about it in a second. Also got the PNS finisher, and I've also got a fabric guard. We'll start with the fabric guard. So this is something I thought would be a good protectant for carpets and stuff, but the thing is, unless you get a, what is it? Okay, but there's 2 different types of fabric protectant. One is going to be, I believe it's water-based, and the other is oil-based or something like that. But this is a water-based one, and it's basically useless. No matter how much you apply, it's not going to have any stains sit on top of fibers, and it's not going to really do anything useful for you. The reason I have the water-based one is because it's significantly cheaper. A gallon of this is like maybe $70, whereas a gallon of the oil-based one is closer to $250. So there's a big price difference, in the two, and there's also a big difference in effectiveness. I would highly recommend, if you're going to get a carpet guard or a fabric guard, to get the oil-based one, because it's going to actually do what it's supposed to do, whereas the water-based one doesn't. And you can see the company I got from, they basically told me that it was going to be useless. I was like, yo, I applied like 3 layers of this and it does nothing. And they're like, yeah, sounds about right, basically. So that's just kind of how it is for this type of product. It might make getting stains out of the carpet easier, I don't really know, but I noticed when I'd spill water on it, it would still just soak right through the fibers. So the oil-based one doesn't have that problem. And the thing about the fabric guard is it makes your carpets kind of like sticky feeling. So if you did apply them to seats, then it would also have, like if you had cloth seats, then it would also have that same feeling. And I feel like it would work better on cloth seats, but I don't know if I would want them feeling like that kind of stickiness. So what you gonna do about it? And so because of that, I don't really find myself using it too much, just because of how useless it is. But there's also the fact that I don't really need it anyways. Like, I don't spill much in my carpets, and if I did, I would just clean them instead of having some kind of spill defender. So fabric guard isn't really a great chemical to buy in the first place, in my opinion. Just as a general idea, I don't think it's very useful. Next one is Finisher. When I first got it, I was using it pretty much on every car, and I actually did like the results it gave. It kind of just neutralizes any odors that might be in the carpet, and this can be from the chemical itself, or it can be from any previous dirt or trash that was there before that you might have cleaned off of there. It helps to just take out that odor and give a nice, like, neutral scent in the car, which is great. The thing is you don't really need to use this that often. You only really need to use it on really smelly or dirty cars. So when I'm doing, like my own car, I don't really need to use it, because if I have an air freshener and I use this, it basically makes the air freshener not last that long, because it kind of degrades some of the air freshener and makes it smell like basically half as long as it's supposed to. While I do really like this product, and I have 3 gallons of it, I've only used about a half gallon so far, and I've had this product ever since I released that one video a while ago, and you can see it right here.
So what I got here is Finisher.
It's a little short, so,
which is a peroxide treatment.
It's a good product. Definitely recommend picking some up, but you don't really need a lot of it, that's for sure. The last one, and this is funny, I've had this product for a whole year, and look at how much I've used. I've used basically like 3 ounces of it. With rinseless washes, especially this McKee's one, you basically need to dilute it at like such a small ratio that it's like you're not even really using any of the product. I mean, I use rinseless wash lily on every single detail. I use it for door jams. Like, let's say there's some water spotting that maybe a door handle was dripping some water while I was cleaning the car. I just noticed it after, so then I quickly throw a little bit of rinseless wash on it to just clean that up. So it's not like I'm using a ton of it, but it is a really nice product to have. And so I have a freaking gallon of it, but you don't even need anywhere close to a gallon. You could probably get like a 16-ounce bottle of it, and it would last you more than a year. With rinseless washes like this, you really don't need a lot of product. It's a really good product to have if you don't have access to like a water source for washing your car, but I do. And therefore, I don't use it all too often. I don't use it in high quantities all too often is what I should say, because I use it every single car I do. When you're getting like a rinseless wash, you might think, oh, I'll just get a gallon to save some money, but there's really not much of a need for a gallon. This thing's probably gonna last me the rest of my whole life. So unless I start picking up like business like crazy, I'm gonna have this for a long time. For an example of the ratio, it's 1 to 256. So if you have a spray bottle that's 16 ounces, you need like 0.1 ounce or something like that. So that means, you're really not using a lot, is all I'm trying to say. This is kind of like a contrast of like really useful chemicals that I use all the time and ones that, you might not need or you might not need much of. Let me see if there's anything else in terms of chemicals here. So in terms of everything else, like if I'm talking about like iron decons, plastic protectants, and glass cleaners, those things are all gonna be pretty standard, and you'll use like somewhere in between these 2 ranges of chemicals. So you'll use them somewhere in between that range there. You can kind of estimate, like if I'm using carpet cleaner like crazy, like if I'm using 50 ounces for a car, well, it's 50 for a really dirty car, 15 for a lightly dirty car, and maybe even 0 if you don't need it at all. And this I'm using 0, then you can estimate, your range somewhere in there. In RQD, you're maybe using like 8 ounces in a car, maybe a little more, like 10. There's quite a variety of amounts you're using. It's good to just kind of get your hands dirty, try cleaning cars, try these things out, see how much you use, and then, you know, go from there. But this is my recommendation. You don't need a lot of McKees for sure. That one you can get away with a 16-ounce bottle for like a couple years for at least. And like if I had a 16-ounce bottle, I would have used maybe 4 ounces of it so far, is what this looks like to me. This thing did have a hole in it when I bought it, so I taped it up and put some super glue on it because it somehow cracked. But yeah, I hope that, you know, this video kind of helped to demonstrate and explain some of the differences in how many chemicals you might use and what chemicals you may not use at all, because, you know, when you're looking around, there are a lot to choose from. So the most popular on the left, least popular on the right, and yeah, I mean, just all goes from there. So pretty much would lump anything else in between unless it's something that's somehow worse than a water-based fabric guard, which I wouldn't recommend anyone buy. So this was pretty straight to the point. My name is Cole, and members of the One Bucket Army, we'll see you later. I love you guys.